Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Oh my goodness! Dan Kent! Look at you and your new digs. I feel like you're already getting flushed with the warmth of the sun on your face. If that's not the truth, don't tell me, because that's not what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, we finally had sunshine. It was 10 days of gray, from Maplewood to Milwaukee to Louisville. It was just very gray, and finally here in Chattanooga we got some sun. It's still not hot, but it's sunny. So
sunny is good, especially because still back home it's just gray.
Yeah, I saw that you guys got the fog. They had fog for days in Milwaukee. So I think you guys got that.
So bad. It's so bad. Well, with that, warm welcome. We say welcome to the MuseCast and happy Muse Day. Did y'all miss us? We weren't on last week because we were having our Christmas Eve service, but so much has changed. So much has changed from 2 weeks ago till now. Dan's in a totally different state. Shawna is trying to pull her brain out of the fog because there is literal fog outside, and it's just that, that time in between Christmas and New Year, and there's just a lot going on.
Do you like find yourself like wondering what day is it? Yeah, that's so weird.
It is very weird. What day is it? What do I have to be anywhere? What's on? It is just really, it's a bit stressful. And then I have like this perpetual feeling of doom, like I'm forgetting something, something massive is due, and I'm just totally blanking on it. So Happy New Year to me. However, Dan Kent, by the way, that's Dan Kent. I'm Shawna Boren. This is the MuseCast, and this is the final MuseCast of 2024.
Is it? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Carry the one. Yes, you're right. It is.
Divide by pi, and then go to it. Can you divide by pi? I don't know.
Yes, you can. No, not really, because you would have to use, because it's an infinite number. So how would you enter it in? That's the problem.
Okay, there you go. We're just solving all kinds of problems here. All right, Dan Kent, we are on the final episode of the MuseCast of 2024. And like I just said, we've spent a couple of weeks, not a couple of weeks, we just missed 1 week, but in the 2 weeks, quite a bit has happened around Woodland Hills. We closed out a Christmas series. We got to hear from our friend Megan to kind of close out the year and kick us off into the new year. You've left the state, you've fled the state, you and your lovely wife, Barbara, and you've left me here to deal with all of the stuff. And so this will be a good show. This will be a celebratory time. We'll kind of get caught up on what we've missed. We'll chat a little bit, and then we'll wish you all a happy new year.
Yes.
And then we'll see you next year.
Sounds good. Yeah, well, I tell you what, I've never had to do 3 sermones before. So I think this is the first time we've had to do that. What a week. I mean, what a week, where you have three services in 1 week. Plus all of the Christmas stuff on top of that, each of the people, I will say that I'm just so grateful to, the worship team and all of the people that make the services possible, taking time out of their own family Christmases to be a part of that. And really, it's amazing that we were able to do all 3 services, because we did our normal Sunday service last week, and then we had our Christmas Eve service on Tuesday, right when the MuseCast usually airs. And then we had another service this Sunday. And so I think what I'm going to do is I just want to talk briefly about each one, and then we can kind of discuss whatever comes up from that.
Yeah.
But I want to go backwards because I want to start with what Megan did this last weekend. Megan kind of did a one-off. We call them one-offs in the business. It's just it's not part of a series or anything. It's just you have this gap, and so you do a one-off. And I actually did a one-off about 4 years ago during the same gap between Christmas and the start of the new year. You don't want to start a season on the last week of a year. You want to start a series on the new year. That's when you want to start. So sometimes we get that extra Sunday there, and so I did it a couple of years ago. Megan joined us this week, and she did a series or a service on John 21. And I thought it was a really great message for kind of looking at the new year. She looked at Peter's kind of relationship with the risen Christ, and she just did a masterful job of unpacking this scene of Peter and the disciples fishing, and then Jesus appears, and then Peter goes on this walk with Jesus, and Jesus basically gives this opportunity to Peter to redeem himself, and asks him, "Do you love me?" 3 times, which then sort of counteracts the 3 times that he betrayed him. And this is one of the most brilliant, beautiful pieces of narrative in the New Testament. But it's so fascinating. Like I didn't notice some of the dynamics with John in that chapter that Megan really pointed out, how even while Peter is walking with Jesus, and Jesus is telling him all this great stuff, he still has his mind sort of looking at John. And it's like, dude, just accept how blessed you are. But no, he's always, he's wondering about the other disciple. And so she just did a really great job of kind of unpacking that. And she kind of gave us these 3 takeaways around that, where instead of thinking of the things that we lack or the threats to the things that we have, we should instead just practice gratitude. We should, ask for what we need, and we have to keep our gaze, our focus fixed in the right direction, which is ahead, which is with Christ, and which I thought was a great service to kind of kick off the new year, because that's a good attitude to have, is to always remember to be grateful, to always to fix our gaze ahead, and to remember to ask for the things that we need in prayer. So prayer and gratitude, man, if we could all carry prayer and gratitude into the new year, I think it will be a great year. And then before that, last Tuesday, we had our Christmas Eve service, and Greg wrapped up our Seeking Christmas series, and he talked about Mary, and he really talked about Mary and her prophetic role in a very real world, and some of the very real things that Mary had to deal with. And I encourage people to watch that just as a wrap to the series, and I'm going to just leave it at that, because I wanted to go backwards from Sunday to the previous Sunday, because I wanted to save the best for last, of course, because the previous Sunday before Greg spoke, we had Shawna speaking on Joseph, and this was also in the Seeking Christmas series. And Shawna just really, I keep saying Shawna like you're not here. This Shawna, she's right here. But at the same time, I don't want to say, you know what you did, because then I'm not talking to the audience. So right. I'm in a jam here. So I'm going with referring to Shawna in the third person. So yeah,
I concur, and I give you permission to refer to me in the third person. Let's both do it. Let's see what Shawna had to say.
Excellent. So as Shawna said, so Shawna's looking at Joseph, of course, Mary's, soon to be husband at the time of the conception. And just really, I thought you did a great job of unpacking kind of what it must have been like to be Joseph in this situation, because it's sort of a tough burden that Joseph had to take on for Mary's blessing. And just looking at his faithfulness and his response, I thought was really great, because Joseph, he had to trust God. He had to walk in obedience to God's commands, and then he had to accept Mary, and then he was called to give Jesus his name, Jesus. And you kind of broke this out about how Joseph had this plan, but then he had this dream, and in this dream, he's given a new direction. In other words, his plan is turned upside down. That included just wild things like going to the manger and escaping to Egypt. And there's so much uncertainty in all of these things that happen, even from just the beginning. You have this base layer of profound uncertainty, the fact that your bride to be is pregnant already, and it wasn't from you. And then you have these strange dreams supposedly explaining it, and that's just the baseline of the uncertainty. But then you have all these events that stack onto it. It's pretty amazing, and I appreciated how you kind of talked about how Joseph's story sort of reminded you of your own and your kind of journey to Minnesota and or coming north, just which happened to be Minnesota. And I thought that was really helpful. And I'm going to miss a lot on this. But then at the end, you kind of use Joseph as a template that could apply to all of us in a really helpful way, which is that we should stay spiritually tuned, because you have to be kind of in touch with God to the best of your ability in order to be able to get a message like that from God, and to know God's voice, so that you can discern, hey, I think God is telling you something, and so you have to be tuned into that, and then you also have to cultivate a trust in God, because it doesn't matter if God is speaking to you if you're not going to trust what God says. And then finally, the types of things that God does in our day-to-day life requires us to exercise faith and trust in God moment to moment. And, I really think that that's a good message to carry into a new year as well. There's a lot more there. You nerded out with some betrothal kind of language and covenant language there, and Paul Eddy, I'm sure, was very proud of that. But just a great sermon, really a great end to the year. All three of these services, I thought, was a good capstone to the year as we go into 2025 and back into the book of Revelation.
Woo! Nice job, Dan. You deserve a MuseCast high five. I don't know if you've got the high five cam ready.
I don't. Yes.
Okay, ready? Set. I mean, right. 3 summaries in one. That's pretty impressive. Way
but the Christmas Eve one was sort of a speed bump.
It's fine. It's kind of like a bloop, bloop.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, it's fine. It was good. Yeah. To hear you recap it all, and I do love that you went backwards, because that helps my brain to like re-engage. Okay, so I'll do the same thing with Megan. What a blessing it is to have friends who can just Zoom in and share their heart with us. I'm very thankful for that. She told one of my favorite Jesus stories, and Peter, like every time I'm studying and I come across Peter, that's always my reaction. Like, Peter, like
that would be a great
buddy.
name. That would be a great name for his sitcom.
Yes. Peter. He just can't help himself. But what I just love so much, and Megan said so much, but the thing that I took away from that, and you mentioned it in your summary, was, to me, just the redemption. Jesus cared enough to give Peter that moment. Because I believe it was intentional. I believe that Jesus was aware that Peter had denied him 3 times. And so he gave him 3 opportunities to declare his allegiance and his love for him. And I just thought that was really beautiful. And even in the midst of this glorious, beautiful, redemptive, lovely moment, Peter, he's like, yeah. What about that guy? It's hilarious. And we maybe can see a bit of ourselves in Peter. I don't know, but I really appreciated it. I was thankful for it. Loved her 3 points. Yes, gratitude. That is so huge. I've talked about that before, how during the pandemic, that was just something that the Lord really, really challenged me with our family, is just like to start our day with gratitude instead of like just being in the midst of all the stuff that was going wrong around us. Ask boldly. Like, I think so many times we forget to go to the Lord boldly in prayer, and then just to fix our gaze forward. I thought that was wonderful. So again, thank you to Megan for sharing her heart with us. And then one step back, we had the good Dr. Greg Boyd concluding the Seeking Christmas series with Mary. And I'm going to be gut level honest with you here, Dan. So Christmas Eve was on a Tuesday. We are having an in-person service as per usual. We did not know what to expect because it was at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Would people be traveling? Would they have family stuff going on? We were thinking maybe like a Sunday morning, honestly, as far as bodies in the building. When I tell you we had double the amount of people that we normally have on it, it was a bit chaotic. It was wonderful. It was glorious, but it was chaotic. And so I wore the wrong shoes to be doing all that running around. So I was hearing Greg, but I was also like making sure people had seats and we had the cookies and it was a bit chaotic. So thank you, Greg. I'm sure it was absolutely amazing. And it is one of those that I will be re-listening to just to fully get everything that was being said. And then the Sunday before, Shawna did speak on Joseph, follow his lead. And what really grabbed me there, I think I took a page from your book, Dan, in that when you spoke about Anna to kick off the series, we don't have a lot of information about Anna. So you got to extrapolate and imagine and just kind of like see what bubbled up to the surface for you. And I felt like I got to do some of that with Joseph as well, because we don't, there's just not a lot there really. And so, but that was really fun. And I did nerd out a bit on the betrothal because it's so different than what we're used to. Like, it's just so different. And so thank you, Paul Eddy, for all of your classes on covenant and all of that. It was really helpful. But what really struck me about Joseph was he was just your everyday dude who was trying to do the right thing and was going to spare Mary the embarrassment of publicly shaming her. And he was going to quietly just kind of put her away. And then he had a dream, and not only did he have the dream, but he paid attention to it and he listened and he acted on what he sensed and what he heard. And I just thought that was really cool. And he kept doing that, right? With these dreams he would have and hearing from God and having to pivot and, change plans and do something different. So I was just really inspired by that. So all of that to say, 2024 is kind of coming to a landing. That's right. I think it was a great December, great Christmas series, Dan Kent. Good job. And I think Megan closing it out with John 21 was perfect. And like you said, on to the next and back to Revelation, folks. Woo!
Yay.
Everyone can't wait. It's going to be good. Yeah. Revelation 7 coming up, but that was that's how we're concluding 2024. Thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you for coming and tuning in and sending questions and participating in all the ways. It was great. We did get a question from Megan's sermon though.
Excellent.
Do you want to?
Let's do it.
Let me find it. I've got all these files. Not really. I don't have any files because I'm off. So, okay, let's see. Again, I'm not going to say your name because we don't know if we have that permission, but Dr. R, this is what we're going to say, says that they very much enjoyed Megan's sermon. She did bring up a question. Did Jesus really appoint Peter as the first pope? Interesting.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if you are Catholic, you would say yes. That is exactly what has happened there. Protestants have not said that, but the whole thing is based on Matthew 16, where Jesus is talking to Peter, saying, on this rock, Petros, I will plant my church. And now the papal tradition has said that when Jesus says this, on this rock I will plant my church, in other words, the authority of the church rests on Peter as this first sort of kind of figurehead. And so that's why when a new pope is kind of elected or chosen, it's like in the line of Peter. And so that you can trace all of the popes back to Peter is sort of their objective. Now, Protestants have historically said that that is not what is going on here. And even if it was, even if Jesus did say that, Peter has this authority, it was not for all Christians over all time, over all areas. It was just over the church there that he is planting with the disciples there. But really, I think what a lot of people who don't accept the papal kind of lineage would say is that when Jesus says on this rock, the rock there isn't Peter. It's a play on words for sure on Peter, but the rock isn't just Peter and this person as the authority. The authority, or the what he's planting his church on, is the confession that Peter makes in that passage. And so, oops, I lost my spot here. And so when Peter confesses Christ as Lord, that's the rock upon which the church is built, is our allegiance to Christ as Lord. That's what God will build the church on. And Peter makes this allegiance, or gives this allegiance, and Jesus points to that as the rock. And so that's kind of a difference of interpretation, and that's how those are done. Ultimately, I tend to look at that and say, well, Peter definitely has authority, and I'm not a Catholic, but I can see how the Catholics would make the interpretation that they make, and it's certainly not something that I will allow to cause division between me and Catholic brothers and sisters. I don't recognize the Pope as an authority over Scripture or over Christ, of course, but I do. There have been some great popes who have done some great things. Some bad popes also, but we won't mention them. No. But yeah, so that's my answer to that. I would say no. Jesus is not creating a papal system here, but it's not worth. It's certainly not worth holding ill will toward believers who think that Jesus is doing that, in my opinion. I
think you hit it on the head, hit the nail on the head. And yeah, no bad popes are welcome to this.
That's right.
So thank you, Dan. You know what? You and I are both really thankful for this show. And by this show, I mean the people that are involved with the show, engaged with the show, and hang out with us and send in their questions and chat with us. And so we thought that for today's Nugget time, we would just kind of do like a year-end type Nugget situation. And then for the first MuseCast in the new year, there'll be something a little different. But for today, we thought we'd do a year-end Nugget situation. So Dan, unless you have anything else that you want to share with everyone, I think we're going to transition to that now. But first, before I see you you're getting your stance ready for the Nugget dance. But first, I do want to just say, I am so thankful and happy for you and Barb that you can get to some warmer weather and some sunshine. I do not like the fact that I don't see Colombo behind your shoulder. I miss different. Colombo. Yeah, it's so a little different.
Here's the other thing I miss is this thing. My computer is piled on this teetering pile of books. At home, I just have the little crank. I can raise it and lower it. And it's I'm living rough right now.
You are. So. You are roughing it. We may have to get a U-Haul, pack some things up from the house and send them to you so you can feel more comfortable. All right, folks. With that, we are going to transition to Nuggets.
we need music. It's weird.
Need music.
It's weird.
Maybe that should be one of the goals for 2025. We need a theme song and some music that we could play during Nugget time. I think that would be good.
I agree. All
right. Well, do you want to go?
Well, here's the thing: is I was thinking, what we need to do, like a nugget that wraps up the year, and I was trying to think of do you is the year end and the year beginning, is that something that's important to you? Do you say, this marks the end of a year, how was this year for me? And you kind of chart your year and say, this was good and that wasn't, and what do I look forward to next year? And you don't make a big deal out of it?
I really don't.
Okay. Well, then what are you going to offer here?
We'll come up with something. I don't know. I don't.
Because I don't either. I don't either. Great. So
what are we doing, Dan? Maybe we should have talked this out a little bit.
Yeah,
so this is what I will say. While I don't sit down and chart through, and many people do, and I actually admire them. Like they can look back through the months and they've kind of dialogued and not dialogue, they've journaled and they've kept an account of the year so that they can just kind of reflect on it. That's just not who I am. However, this is what I will say. And I feel like we say this a lot, so it doesn't feel like a year-end thing, but because I'm saying it as a year-end thing, it should let you guys know how true it is, that I am so thankful for this space. I just love the fact that we get this really good teaching at Woodland Hills, and we could just leave it there. But the fact that we have this space to come together, to dialogue it more, to kind of come up with some different angles, perspectives, to ask questions, to kind of bat it around, to try to encourage and challenge one another. It just really, I honestly love it. And 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, when we started this show, I had no idea I had no idea like that it would be something that I look forward to, that I enjoy. That's one of the favorite things that for me, I'm not going to speak for Dan, but for me, it is one of the favorite things that I do as a part of my role. And that's because of this guy. Oh. He is a hoot and a half, a hoot and a holler, as we say, and you guys. And so as we close out 2024, and if I were to reflect back, I would just say I do have immense gratitude, and I am thankful, and I honestly feel like I have gotten more out of our teaching, out of our sermons, because of this show, because of our role here. I do have to dig in a little more than I would if I were just sitting back and listening. And I'm just incredibly thankful for that. And I look forward to more of it. And yeah, we're going to get some theme music. We're going to get, maybe a nugget dance intro thing. We got some big time things on the horizon. Not really. It'll just be us, but it'll be fine.
Well, that was a great nugget. So that's a tough one to follow. And I will say that I do also appreciate this opportunity, because usually when I listen to a sermon, and I've always been this way, where I always want to talk about the sermon afterward, and there's some people don't really care to do that, and and it's okay, but this is a great opportunity where we can, and then it also draws other people who like to process the sermon more, and how that's just really cool. And also, like, I think personally, the more opportunities, the more outlets that we have where Shawna can host is just always a good thing, because you're just such a natural. So that's another good thing. And I guess the other thing I would say is what I was thinking about is I gave a sermon a year and a half ago called I don't remember what it was called. Don't Look Back, I think, but it's about when Paul tells the Philippians to let go of what's behind and strain for what's ahead. And so as I think of like the end of a year, I like to kind of look for lessons in the year and really contemplate, like, what did I learn this year, and what were mistakes I made? What did I do good last year that I wish I would have done more of, or whatever, and just take lessons from it, and then move on and strain for what's ahead, which is not a mindless thing, because you're still collecting those lessons, hopefully, and then you start to look kind of what Megan was saying. You fix your gaze on the right direction and on the right person, who is Jesus. And so I guess that's what I would say for my year-end nugget.
Good job, Dan. I love it. Well, with that, we say thank you guys for being here, being a part of us in 2024, and we will see you next year. Have an awesome week. Be safe. Be thankful. Celebrate you. Celebrate Jesus. Celebrate all the things, and come back in 2025. We'll be here.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.